Welcome to the channel. Today, we explore our species' obsession with music and visual art, and we are addressing a strange reality. Singing a song or painting a picture offers no direct help when it comes to foraging for food or hiding from a predator. This puzzle bothered evolutionary biologists from the very beginning. Charles Darwin noted in The Descent of Man that humans' capacity to produce and enjoy musical notes seemed to serve no obvious biological purpose. This observation led to a long-standing historical assumption, a null hypothesis, that our love for drawing and melodies is merely a pleasant byproduct of having a large brain. Research across neurobiology, psychology, and anthropology refutes the idea that art is a mere accident. Evidence suggests artistic expression is a specialized, hardwired mechanism necessary for early human survival. To see how deeply ingrained this is, we have to look at how art physically alters brain chemistry. When you listen to a harmonic progression or look at a compelling painting, your brain co-opts ancient survival circuits. Specifically, it activates the mesolimbic pathway, the same network that reinforces behaviors like eating and reproduction. Engaging with art triggers a release of dopamine, generating that distinct euphoric physical chill you sometimes get from a favorite song. This chemical reward happens through a process called predictive coding. Your brain operates as an active inference machine, constantly guessing the structural syntax of what comes next. An artist establishes a predictable baseline, like a specific color palette or a steady rhythm. When the artist introduces a structural violation, like a dissonant chord or visual asymmetry, it generates a prediction error in your brain. This creates cognitive tension. Resolving that tension back into harmony delivers cognitive satisfaction. This aesthetic processing reaches a peak in a brain region called the default mode network, or DMN. Normally, the DMN manages your internal thoughts, memories, and self-reflection. When you engage with a task in the outside world, the DMN suppresses itself so your sensory networks can take over. But neuroimaging shows a striking exception. When you view an artwork that you find profoundly moving, the DMN lights up instead of shutting down. When an aesthetic experience hits a critical threshold of appeal, your brain stops processing the painting or the song as a purely external object. The heightened DMN activity integrates the art directly into your internal neural self-schema. It bridges the gap between a physical stimulus and your personal identity, generating the feeling of being touched from within. We don't just passively consume art. The physical act of making it actively drives our psychological development. Drawing requires Psych's neurological coordination, lighting up both hemispheres of the brain simultaneously. The right side processes spatial reasoning and imagination, while the left manages structural planning and logical execution. This focus reliably induces a flow state, a meditative condition that lowers the production of stress hormones like cortisol and builds emotional resilience. Long before children can verbally articulate complex feelings, these creative acts serve as sophisticated psychological windows. Clinicians use early childhood drawings as robust diagnostic tools. Bright colors and large figures often correlate with positive affect and security, while a reliance on dark, chaotic colors, heavy physical pencil strokes, or microfigures placed in the corners of a page provide clear, nonverbal indicators of underlying anxiety or shifting family dynamics. This research helps explain the tragedy paradox. Humans typically avoid real-life sadness, yet we actively seek out sad music and tragic literature. Older theories suggested these experiences triggered prolactin, a hormone meant to curb real-world grief, but empirical testing has largely dismissed that. Instead, research shows that high-empathy individuals use sad art as an imaginary virtual companion. It provides a controlled environment to practice emotional regulation and experience catharsis free from real-world guilt. The art we use to navigate these emotions eventually hardwires itself into our memories. Developmental psychology tracks a phenomenon known as the reminiscence bump. During late adolescence and early adulthood, typically between ages 10 to 30, rapid neurological development and intense hormonal surges create an optimal environment for memory encoding.
Because music and visual art serve as primary coping mechanisms during this volatile window, they embed themselves permanently into your narrative identity schema. art acts as a critical psychological sandbox, giving us structural tools to manage trauma, bond with peers, and build a stable sense of self. This psychological scaffolding is a deeply rooted hominid trait. The timeline of visual communication stretches back tens of thousands of years. Uranium-thorium dating has revealed abstract red ochre paintings and cross-hatched lines carved into rock by Neanderthals at least 73,000 years ago, demonstrating early symbolic intent. As figurative cave art emerged, early humans deliberately placed paintings in acoustic hotspots. Anthropologists theorize that humans generating echoes in these caves were translating auditory experiences into two-dimensional visual symbols. The cognitive leap required to turn a transient sound into a permanent symbol mirrors the abstract symbolic thinking necessary for the development of early language. While visual art formalized communication, performative art forms evolved to solve an immediate socio-evolutionary crisis. As human ancestors transitioned to bipedalism, they needed to form larger social groups to survive predators and forage effectively. But traditional primate bonding mechanisms, specifically one-on-one physical grooming, became mathematically impossible to maintain in groups exceeding 50 individuals. The music and social bonding hypothesis explains how hominids crossed this threshold. Rhythmic chanting and communal drumming provided a scalable solution for mass social bonding. Engaging in synchronized physical movement triggers a release of pain-relieving endorphins by activating the endogenous opioid system. This biological capacity for musicality and shared rhythm allowed the brain to simultaneously code for both action and perception. This cognitive blurring erased the boundaries between self and other, generating the empathy necessary for human tribes to scale up mass cooperation. Over millennia, sophisticated human civilizations engineered aesthetic formulas to utilize these evolutionary traits. Over 2,000 years ago on the Indian subcontinent, the sage Bharata Muni codified Rasa Theory. This framework recognized that the chaotic emotions of real life are different from the pleasurable emotions filtered through art. Rasa relies on a formula of objective triggers to transform raw, isolated feelings into a universal aesthetic experience. We see this drive for mass cohesion preserved in Indian traditional folk art. Unlike Western traditions that often prioritize individual artistic genius, Indian styles like Worli painting are profoundly communal. These white geometric figures painted on mud walls act as a repository for community identity. Notice that deliberate lack of facial features in these dancers. This renders the subjects as universal symbols, emphasizing human dependence on nature and the rhythmic unity of the entire community. In contemporary society, these ancient drives for aesthetic bonding reach a modern synthesis in Bollywood. Composers like A.R. Rahman seamlessly blend classical Indian ragas with regional folk traditions and global genres like electronic dance music to engineer a unifying emotional soundscape for a highly diverse population. From symbols on prehistoric cave walls to global cinema soundtracks, human cultures continuously develop artistic frameworks to synchronize our emotions, foster shared memory, and bind billions of individuals into a cohesive social fabric. The evidence suggests that Darwin's paradox can be addressed with modern data. The idea that art is a useless cognitive byproduct is no longer supported by neurobiology or anthropology. Art is a refined tool. It rewards our brain structure with dopamine, provides a necessary safe haven for emotional regulation, externalizes our thoughts, and bound our self-interested ancestors together into tribes capable of mass cooperation. The creation and consumption of art provided the fundamental structural tools that made early human survival and flourishing possible. Thank you so much for watching. If you have questions about the science of art, or if there's another deep psychological mystery you want us to explore, drop a comment down below. And please make sure to subscribe to the channel. It's the best way to support our growth and keep these videos coming.